Hey, it's your girl, Ashley, aka The Widow. Hopefully, everybody's having a wonderful Wednesday, right? Please, if you don't mind, like, share, and subscribe. And we're going to be talking about Moon Knight today. So, leave your comments down below. Have you had a chance to see Moon Knight? If so, let me know what you think. Or are you going to skip this one? Either way, your thoughts down below. Please let me know your thoughts about Moon Knight. Moon Knight premiered today, or in my case, I woke up at 4:30 in the morning and had to check it out. So Moon Knight premiered today on Disney Plus. It stars Oscar Isaac, as a title character, the lead character, and we get to see. We're introduced to Stephen Grant, who is one of the many personalities of Mark Spector. Mark Spector has dissociative identity disorder, and we are first introduced to Stephen Grant. And Stephen Grant here, I'll get into that, but first, the show opens up on Arthur Harrow, who is played by Ethan Hawke. And Arthur Harrow is a scientist, a mad scientist, in the comics. And he experiments on people, and I think that it also deals with pain and pain management a bit as well. But Ethan Hawke has spoken in several different interviews that this version of Arthur Harrow is more of a cult leader. Like, he has a big following he can because of what his power set truly is, and we'll get into that in a little bit later in our meeting Arthur Harrow section when Oscar Isaac's character, Stephen Grant, Mark's Spector, meets him, within the town square. So we'll kind of get into that a little bit more down the road. But once it opens up and we're introduced to, Ethan Hawke's character, Arthur Harrow, we see him, kind of open up this napkin, lay this glass down. He has water there. He, takes his finger around the rim in the circular motion around the rim of the glass. He drinks the water. He sets the glass into the glass. He breaks it up, the glass up. And then we see him, put that glass in his shoes. He puts his shoes on and he walks about, and he has his cane with the wonderful alligator head as well. So that has to be quite painful. The next scene was we get the beautiful Marvel title card, right? Right after that. And then from there, we're introduced to Mark Spector, or Stephen Grant here. And in the comic books, Stephen Grant is this billionaire, kind of playboy guy, and Mark Spector, who is, the mercenary. And then you have Jake Lockley, who is the cab driver. This version of Stephen Grant is a little bit different. He's British. He works at a museum, in the gift shop. And he's a little bit more mild mannered, a little bit more passive, and kind of people in his life, kind of ignore him, don't notice him, or kind of treat him not so great, really. And so it opens up after past that Marvel title card. We see Stephen Grant laying in the bed. He wakes up slightly confused, removes the blanket, and from there we notice that he's chained to the bed, and he has that the circle of sand around the bed, which is also, like a lot of people, is salt, which is like a protection ring. But here it's just, I believe, in Steven's mind, is to track his footprints to see if he gets up out of the bed. But it's also kind of known as a protection thing, also in voodoo and other things that people will use salt or barriers down as protection. So I thought that was really cool. He wakes up. He removes his foot shackle. He knows that he did not get up in the sand. He then goes to the door, and in the door we notice that there's a line of blue tape. So if he opens the door in the middle of the night, he will notice if he left. Because I guess in Stephen Grant's mind, he's doing these sleepwalking, right? In his sleep. And so for him, that's what he's concerned, that he's doing this while he's sleeping. And we learn later down the road that obviously this is Mark Spector, that when he wakes up confused and he's lost this time, Stephen Grant, that it's really Mark Spector taking ownership of his body, and he is in control then. But to Stephen, it's just like he's lost this time, that he's doing these things while he's sleeping. From there, he calls his mom on the telephone, and she doesn't pick up, and he leaves this voicemail for her, on the phone. And I'm curious about the mom stuff, because we see him later, have another call where he calls her, no answer again. He's leaving a voicemail, and curious, where does the mother play into all of this? Has her mother passed, but the line is still active possibly, and he's able to leave her a message, because I feel like if she's getting those messages, she would realize that something was obviously up with her child. If it's his mom, it could be someone else's number that he's calling, thinking it's his mother. And really it's someone totally different altogether, really. So from there, we see him, make that call. Then we get to the museum. And at the museum here, we notice that, Stephen walks in and he sees this little girl. He has this great interaction, explaining to her, Egyptian culture and history, and about the embalming experience of how they used to embalm bodies, through the nose. And and you could tell that he's very knowledgeable, and he knows a lot of this stuff, and he's very fascinated, and it excites him. There, his boss comes into the picture, Donna, and she's like, you're not a tour guide. You work in the gift shop. And she kind of, she's sassy. She kind of gives it to him, and poor Steven here. You can kind of tell that she, gives him a hard time a lot. And, you know, cut to now we're in the gift shop, and she's like, I told you you can't be a tour guide. She basically tells him, nope, 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 this is your job, and this is where you are. And then one of his coworkers walks over to Steven, and she says, like, yeah, so are we still on for our date Friday at 7? And he's confused by this. He's like, we have a date, and she's like, yeah, you're gonna take me to the best steakhouse in town. And he's like, okay, got it. Obviously, Steven is confused. He doesn't remember, scheduling a date with her. And then his boss comes back over, and she really makes sure she confirms it for everyone by saying, hey, Steven, you're a vegan. What are you going to eat at a steakhouse? So obviously, Steven didn't make the date. I mean, well, we already knew that from the confusion. So it was like a doubling down on, we're going to a steakhouse. Which I was like, okay, we're not that dumb. Like, you kind of gave it to us, and then you're giving it to us again. So it's a little heavy handed to me. I feel like you were force feeding that information in my throat. Like, oh, Steven's confused. But let me also tell you this over here, so you definitely know that Steven didn't make this mistake. Which I think that most of us can kind of get that. So, whoop de doo. So, from there, after that, after the conversation, the co-worker situation happens. The next situation I want to talk about is the field, right? So Stephen wakes up, and he's just like in the middle of this field. His jaw is hurting. It's kind of a funny moment because he's so confused, and he's in pain and agony, and he doesn't understand how he got there. He has absolutely no clue what events led to him being there, right? And then we hear Khonshu speak, right? And we also get this great moment where Khonshu is like literally, like, we don't see his head, we just see his body, from I believe his shoulders down, and you see this amazing mummy get up that he's in, and he's standing he's standing literally behind Stephen, and Stephen has no clue he's behind him. He is so confused at that point. But at one point, Khonshu is speaking to Stephen, and he's like, pleading with him, you're the idiot. Relinquish this body. Surrender the body to Mark. That's what he says. He says, surrender the body to Mark. Stephen is confused, right? And then there's this, and then he runs, up the hill. He notices this home. He sees two guys standing in the window and he waves at them, which I thought was funny. And from there, um, a chase begins. Like they're shooting at him, they've got guns. He doesn't know what is happening at this point, why these guys are chasing him, um, or what have he has no clue why any of these things, why they're chasing him. And he finds out that he has this artifact in his pocket, which is something that is, you know, associated with an Egyptian deity, Ammit, and he doesn't know at this point like what's going on. He makes his way to the town square, where we meet um, Arthur Harrow, and as he's and we see Arthur Harrow, walking with this crowd of people, like touching him, happy that he's there, right? And Mark is like also at this point, excuse me, he's Stephen at this point, hiding his face, trying to get away from. We find out later that they're Arthur's goons, henchmen. They're the bad guys, chasing him around. Arthur then stands in front of this group of people in the square, and he says, a gentleman walks up to him. He grabs his hands, and then you notice Arthur has this tattoo on his arm, which is this, scale, and the scale tips. And there, I guess we realize that he has this ability that has also been given to him from an Egyptian god, right? That he can see everything that either they've done in their lives or that they will do. So anything that is considered bad or against humanity, Ammit will take their lives immediately. And he says to him, "You're a good man." Then the next person comes up. It's an older lady. She comes up. Same thing happens with her. But in her case, Arthur tells her, "I'm so sorry that you will not get to see all the wonderful things that we are going to do in this world." And she says back to him, "I have been good my whole life." And he says, "Well, it must be something from that you will do in the future." And then immediately you see the life removed from her body. She dies instantly in that moment from there. Then from there, the henchmen come up to Arthur, and he's like, "We've had a problem, and retrieving this, someone got away with it." He then is talking to the crowd, and everyone in the crowd, bows. They go down to their knees. Mark, aka Stephen, is still standing. Arthur recognizes him. He says, "I know you. You're the mercenary, right?" And Stephen is like, No, I'm not a mercenary. You got the wrong guy. My name's Stephen Grant. I live in London. I'm trying to get home. I work in a gift shop." And he's like, "No, please, give this to me." And he's like, and Stephen tries to give it to him. He can't, Khonshu refuses to allow Stephen, to give it to him. So there's this fight, it's in his hand. It's kind of funny because, like, Stephen's trying to open his hand. He can't open his hand. His arm goes back. He goes on for a little too long. I think if it was just like if it was a little shorter. I think that that's sometimes what happens with jokes is they go on too long, so it oversells the joke, right? So from there, a scuffle and a struggle ensues. There's a flash. Stephen is back, and all the people that he was struggling with, you see the bodies on the ground. They're dead. The blood's coming from their face. And that's how they got around this, and I don't like it, and I'm going to be real here with you. I understand it's not going to be like so graphic and gory. But come on, let me. I mean, and maybe it'll be later down the road when we see more of Mark. Um, I don't like that every time we see a dead body or there's. I'm concerned that it's always going to be like these flashes, like he's Steven, then it happens, and now he's back to Steven, and all we see is the aftermath. You know, you got to show it to us. You got to show it to us, right? In my opinion. And then from there, after he wakes up from that moment, he steals a van because they're all chasing him. He steals a van. The chase ensues. A car follows him. One of the goons, is able to get onto this cupcake van that Steven has stolen. Then he realizes he has his gun in his hand. Khonshu is having this back and forth with him. Just you know, back and forth. He's so confused. There's another flash. He wakes up, dead body in the back of the truck. See, that's another thing. Now there's the second dead body, where we didn't see any of that. Again, hopefully that'll happen later down the road. So from there, the chase ensues. And then from there, he goes home, he goes to sleep, he wakes up, and he notices that this fish, and it shows you like in the opening sequence when we're first introduced to Steven, aka Mark, that he has a goldfish in his aquarium, and it has one fin. He notices that this goldfish has two fins. He goes back to the pet shop. She informs him, "You were here yesterday, and I told you yesterday, this isn't Finding Nemo. Fish have two fins." And he's like, "I wasn't here yesterday." And he realizes the time. He's like, "That time can't be right. Um, I just woke up." And he realizes it's Friday, and she's like, "It's not the right fish. It's not the right time. It's not the right day." Basically that he's so confused is what she says to him. He realizes in that moment, "Oh shit, I'm late for my date." So he rushes home. He gets ready to go on his date, and he's sitting there at the restaurant, and he's all by himself, and it's like sad. You're like, "Oh, I guess she decided not to come." Well, then after so long and him having a back and forth with the waiter there, we find out that he calls her, and she was like, "Yeah, I was there on our date on Friday, and I ate steak by myself." And she was like, "Today is Sunday," and he's so confused. He's like, "Doesn't Friday come after Thursday?" And she's like, "It doesn't change the fact that today is Sunday." So then he realizes that he lost 2 days. It confirms, in that moment with the waiter that it's Sunday. He then orders a steak. He just gives up, orders a steak, has that, back and forth with the guy at the restaurant. And so then, from there. And also, I forgot, we got to go back. He had a phone call right after the fish scene, where he found, a spot in the wall where there was a phone. He gets a call, and he realizes that most of all of his missed calls are from Layla. And obviously, he gets that call that's Layla on the phone, and she's like, "What is with this accent? Why are you talking like this? What's wrong with you, Mark?" He's like, "Why did you call me Mark?" The call ends from there. So we get there, and then from there, things in the apartment, the books start falling, the lights start flickering. He makes his way to the bathroom, and he sees himself in the reflection, but the reflection is not moving with him, and that's Mark in the mirror. We don't really see his, the reveal of him really talking to him, but you get the idea, because it's Oscar Isaac's voice, talking to him like, you don't want to deal with any of this, that type of thing. He kind of lets him know, that, this isn't for you. He then runs out of his loft, from there, and he gets on the elevator. Um, he opens the elevator and he sees Khonshu coming towards him on the elevator. Quickly the door closes. When the door opens, it's an elderly lady, and he's like cowering and in the background, and she's completely freaked out by this. He then arrives back on the fifth floor, and from there, that's where we go. From there, the next big scene that I kind of wanted to talk about, before we wrap up here, is Arthur Harrow comes to the museum. And at the museum, like before, he when Stephen enters the museum, he has that back and forth with the security guard. The poor security guard keeps calling him Scotty. He just reminded him, earlier in the episode, my name's not Scotty, it's Stephen. Which I thought that was kind of funny. Arthur comes. They have this back and forth. Arthur, you know, is like, tells him about Amit, right? And that she's this Egyptian deity, and that she sees everything you have done and everything that you will do, right? And that she judges fairly. And if she feels that you've done something wrong, that she will take your soul and your life force immediately in that moment. He takes Stephen's hands, and Stephen says, "I can't help you." And Arthur says, "I am here to help you." He takes his hands, in that judgment, and he's, and he says, "There's chaos in you." Stephen runs off. Later, he is in the museum, after closing. And from there, we hear Arthur come over on the loudspeaker. And he says, "Give up the scribe, or you will die." Stephen, throughout all of this, he feels like he's hearing a dog or a pet, in the museum. Come to find out, it's a jackal, right? He gets into the bathroom, right? And this is where we get this beautiful reveal at the final seconds of the episode. He has this back and forth with himself in the mirrors, and Mark says, "You have to let me take control." And Steven's like, "I'm gonna die." He's like, "No, let me take over." And so in the final seconds, we see Steven's head go back, the Moon Knight suit kind of go over his clothing in this cool in the cool mummy look, and the glowing eyes. He then attacks the jackal, beats this jackal down, stomps him out, right? And the episode ends. I will say this overall for the episode, I would say it's a good, solid episode. I still prefer WandaVision's first episode over this. The things that I didn't care about, I get it, like the flashes, going between Steven and Mark. I'm scared it's gonna get a little old after a while, just because you got to show us some of this stuff that's that Mark's doing. Yeah, you're showing us the blood and the bodies, but you're not showing us any of the fighting. So I'm a little concerned. Are we going to keep seeing a lot of that in the show? I don't want that. I don't want it to be like a quick flash every once in a while. After the first time when he had that moment in the town square, I thought, okay, this is cool. But the second time it happened on the van, I was like, okay, this is kind of bullshit. Like, show me something. I understand that maybe you're trying to save the Mark stuff, for the final minutes of this episode here, but I'm really hoping that moving forward that's not the case. That we're actually going to see Mark Spector with all of his mercenary goodness and as Moon Knight beating down people, inflicting pain. We've got to see it. You got parental controls now, Disney Plus. Do it. I guess for me, that's the biggest thing that I'm concerned with. Also, I know that episode 2, 3, 4, 5 is written by someone else. I thought that it was a good episode. It was a strong episode, but if I'm gonna give this episode an overall score, and I'm like, my mind can change because I can watch it again and feel a different way. But for right now, just off the first watch, I'm gonna give the episode a 7 out of 10. Maybe and let me know what is your score for episode 1 down below. Did you like episode 1 of Moon Knight? Are you excited for episode 2, guys? I don't know how I feel about this show right now. But please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and comment down below, and make sure you have your notification bell on. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully everybody is happy and healthy, and that is the only thing that I ask that all of you all can have is happiness and health. I'm your girl Ashley, aka The Widow. We'll see you very soon in our next video. I've got another video dropping tomorrow, hopefully, about Lost City. Should you go see that movie? I don't know. Maybe. But I'm about to get up out of here. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Bye.